Okay, welcome back. For today's guest, we have Mary Claire Schibelka. So Mary Claire is a licensed professional counselor and singles coach based in Chicago, Illinois. Mary Claire, how are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm doing great, surviving this heat wave.
Yes, it's supposed to be very mild and 78 or 9. You're heading to Lollapalooza this weekend, so very exciting for you.
Yes, and God is going to bless us with good weather that day, it looks like. So I've got my fingers crossed. We don't want 90 degrees. We don't want rain, none of that.
Yeah, Chicago, they'll take them when they can get them.
Yeah.
Well, we're super stoked to have you on. I'm particularly jazzed about this topic because it's going to be about dating, right? So whether you're dating online, if you're dating offline, if you're single, if you're married, so this could potentially be a 2-part episode. But for the purposes of today, we're going to just talk about dating, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about your background. So you specialize in dating and building and maintaining relationships, spirituality, some body positivity stuff. So give us a little bit about your specialty and what you work on with some of your clients.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed professional counselor. So that's basically a clinical therapist. And in the clinical therapy setting, I see all kinds of clients. I work with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, a ton of relationship stuff. And that's my passion, the relationship stuff. So that is why I started my own business, and that is Tea with MC. That's my singles coaching business. That's mainly what we're here to talk about today. And with that, I focus on helping women, I work with men too, really develop their sense of self-worth, know who they are. I specialize in working with Christians, so part of that too is knowing who they are in God, and dating from a place of already feeling fulfilled, so that they're not dating out of desperation. They're not settling for just any old guy they can get. They're coming at it from a stance of, I already have everything I need. And if I find a partner to complement and add to that, then that's fantastic. But if not, that's okay too. So there's really 2 parts. There's the self-worth and really building a fulfilling single life. And then there's the dating on top of that.
So first of all, I have to really commend you for that, because I think men and women both, we've drifted apart from really good, wholesome values. Whether you're a Christian or you're not, it doesn't. Right. I think that we've just drifted apart from that. So we do our part here to make sure that men are on the right path, and we do that in a couple of different areas. And I really, really appreciate people who are doing that on the female side of the equation, because we both want the same things. It's just hard to filter through a lot of the junk, and
absolutely,
not least because you got to do that with yourself. So you mentioned that relationships was your passion. So beyond that, what led you to this kind of work? Because it's messy. It's tough work sometimes, I'm sure.
It can be. Relationships are really like the bread and butter of life. There's a lot of psychological theorists from the past and also today who believe that mental health is really centered around relationships. And if you have positive relationships, then you're more likely to have good mental health. And it's true, because other people are a reflection of ourselves. And when we're alone, first of all, we don't have that social stimulation that we need. And also we can get so stuck in like our own devices and our own ways. And when we have other people, we just bloom in all these areas that we didn't really know that we could before.
And is part of that helping people get to know what it is that they really want?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That is part of what prevents the settling or the saying, oh, okay, here's a guy or a girl who wants to be with me. Perfect. Let's do it. Like, no, you have to actually back up and say, what am I looking for in a future partner? Do I want to get married? Do I want to have kids? And the answers to those questions, they'll dictate the kind of partner that you choose. Hopefully, they should.
Yeah, I heard a story a couple of years ago where, and this has happened with everybody. So, you want a Ford Explorer. I want a Ford Explorer. I want a Ford Explorer. and 6 months, that's what you're thinking of. And that's all that you're thinking of. And then you go get a Ford Explorer, and then you're driving the Ford Explorer home from the dealership, and then they're everywhere. You can see them everywhere. And it's not that they weren't there before, but it's just that when you become more focused on it, it starts to appear in more areas than you were noticing before because you got clear on it, right? So when you're working with women, what are some issues or some things that they're struggling with regards to men? Like what are some common themes that you hear, or is it more just with women, like themselves?
No, they have a lot of issues with men too, believe it or not. A general just kind of like lack of intentionality in dating. A lot of the time people are just kind of out there running around, hanging out with each other, talking or whatnot, and nobody really knows what the goal is. So I really want to normalize having those kinds of discussions of like, this is what I'm looking for in a relationship. Are you on the same page? A lot of women are struggling to find men who want to commit. And I think a lot of that is our current culture and current media really like promoting the single independent lifestyle, or having a lot of partners at once, which being single and having independence is great. But there also comes a time when a lot of people want to settle down with one person. And what they're finding is that it can be really difficult to find somebody who wants the same thing.
Yeah, I would say between the two sexes, women have a more condensed time frame with which to get their careers and their relationships in order, or traditionally in order, more so than they do for men. I think between 20 and, I would say on average between 20 and 30, where men, it's not as time crunched, right?
Well, women have the pressure of the biological clock ticking. And there's a lot of women now with modern science who are having children all the way into their late 30s or even 40s. But there's a social pressure too. Yeah,
that's accurate. Especially if in the Midwest, right? It's kind of the normative. The closer that you move out to the coast, it's a little bit more normative to maybe stay single a little bit longer. So we share that. So what are you helping women to really look for when you're working with them?
So we can start by talking about, do we want to start with talking about in person or on dating apps?
You know what? I think it would be, let's go with dating apps. So one of the things that men really struggle with, because we are very, we don't take a great deal of pictures, and what we're missing and what we don't realize is what our profiles are sub-communicating about our lives. So we just take it at face value, and women are seeing much deeper beyond just the image itself, right? So go on with what you were saying about the dating apps.
Yeah. So, in general, actually, to answer your question in a broader sense, I am helping women find those committed partners. Like I said, there are plenty of women and men out there who don't want to commit to somebody right now. That's fine. I'm not trying to tell them what to do. I'm not in their business. But the women who I work with, they're looking for the next step. They're looking for partners who are ready to commit, ready to settle down, if you will. So on the dating apps, there are certain things that are clues that somebody may be more ready for that than other people. So on pretty much, I would say some of the most popular dating apps, which I see mostly these days, Hinge and Bumble are the two that I think women tend to gravitate to more. Tinder, it's kind of worked itself into this like shady, bad reputation zone.
Yep.
Hinge and Bumble, I think, are the two that are the most popular. And on both of those, you have a couple different things you can do. You can upload pictures. You can answer questions. They have prompts on there. And then you can also enter different things in terms of like, what do you do for work? Do you drink? Do you smoke? Do you have kids? So I encourage women to look for people who are taking the time to fill in those different things. Not that they have to do all of them, because there's a certain element of privacy that we need when we're on the internet. But the prompts are big. So for one, if you're coming across a profile and this guy has like one picture and he doesn't answer any of the questions that are available, you kind of have to ask yourself, what's his purpose for being on here? Or how much time did he take when he was creating this profile? And how does that reflect into how serious he is about finding a partner? Or how does that reflect on how much he knows about himself? These things are important.
Yeah, we think very differently, right? And I think that the amount of effort being put into, or lack thereof, for that matter, is way more obvious, I think, to you guys than it is to us. Where we're just like, yeah, I got a couple questions. Like, I just want to get there, right? I just want to enter the scene, and it's like, okay, because you're presenting a 2D model of yourself, you have to really best represent yourself in an authentic way that shows, hey, this is the full, hopefully it's the full fulfilled life that I have. And if you'd like to join the fun bus, great. And if you don't, that's great too. But you have to create that in a way that is authentic. And beyond that, there's no way to BS that. Because I feel like there's an intuition that women have that, again, is beyond men, where you can really sniff that out. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair. I get what you're saying, where a guy might just throw up a few pictures that he took like 5 years ago and be like, okay, this works. Who's out there?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you put yourself in the shoes of somebody who is on the other end of that, there's your profile, which has those 2 pictures. And then there are these other profiles of guys who took the time to answer some of those questions about what they're looking for in a partner, or some of them are funny and not nearly as serious. Like, you can really showcase your sense of humor. And unfortunately, there's a lot of research about what happens in our brains when we're looking at a dating app and we know another person is just a swipe away. So in a sense, I don't know if this is the right word to use, but there is almost like a comparison element going on. So you might be a wonderful person, but if you're not taking the time to showcase that, you're not putting in the effort to put statements on there, or little jokes, or whatever it is, or, you know, pictures of you doing some of the things you love, pictures of you with your family or traveling, it's almost kind of like you get lost in the mix. It's like, oh, okay, here's this guy who likes to go hiking and he has a sense of humor. Great. Oh, here's this guy who uploaded one picture with a hat and sunglasses and I have no idea what he looks like. Maybe the next one will be better.
Is that common? I mean, I'm never on that side of the dating apps if and when I'm on them, but is that common?
I wouldn't say it's incredibly common. I think most people know better.
Yeah.
But it happens. It does happen. I don't know what kind of luck they get.
Yeah,
but it does.
It does, and I would be willing to bet. Well, I know maybe that's aggressive, but is to show it. So yeah, it's great if you want to say that you're a hikey, that you love hiking, and that you're a big traveling guy. And then if all of your pictures are at home or in your car and they're all selfies and one is at the gym, it's like, okay, you're not doing any of those things. So I actually have to look at what you do, and your pictures don't say that.
Yeah, pictures worth 1,000 words.
Right.
And the car selfies, now that one is really accurate.
Really?
That's okay. It's okay. Like, you know, it's good to see a close-up of your face and what you look like. It's when they're all car selfies.
Yeah.
It's like, does this guy live in his car?
Yes, right. Okay, so the prompts, and you mentioned the thing about privacy too. There is an element of like, if you sell the farm, it's like why you have to create a bit, and not in a manipulative way at all, but you have to create an air of like, no, you want to create some intrigue. Because if I just say this is where I work, this is what I do, and I just give you the farm, there's no incentive for you to be invested or want to find out more. And women love mystery. I mean, to some degree, a healthy amount of mystery. So it's like,
I think everyone does.
Yeah. That's, if you're not intrigued, if it's like, okay, this is, I've kind of gotten everything I need to know, then what's the point in meeting up? So,
yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of things on there. I think Bumble is the one that has the most. Like, you can put what your job is. You can put where you grew up. You can put what your political affiliation is. If you're COVID vaccinated, if you drink, if you smoke, if you use chemical drugs, if you smoke pot, and a lot of people, they're worried that they'll see like an employer on there or something too. I actually had somebody tell me that one time, a guy who I met. I said, you don't really put a lot of information on here. And he was an attorney. And he's like, yeah, working in the legal field, it's made me a little bit paranoid.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. But you can still, like I was saying earlier, make a joke or, something that shows a little bit of who you are without putting your whole self out there to the public.
Yeah, very good. So beyond the visual cues, so we've talked about the prompts and the pictures and whatnot. There are, visual cues are not, they're important in that it would be ideal if things were more symmetrical, or people were in better shape, or if you were representing yourself, you were okay with showcasing your entire body, or if you had like a full body picture, that's very transparent. It's like, no, this is me. I'm not missing arms or limbs or sitting down all the time. My question for you is, what are some other things that are cues beyond the prompts? Because visual cues are much more something that guys are akin to, right? So how are you evaluating things like careers, hobbies, and then also where they're going? Because men have to have like a direction, or at least they should.
Yeah, everybody should. Yeah, well, the profile is kind of just like the hook, where someone either decides if they're interested or not. So you can put pictures of hobbies. You can talk about your hobbies. You can put pictures of yourself at work, talk about that on your profile. But the second part is the conversation that takes place after you match. And there's a lot of guys and girls out there who complain about the conversations always being very, hey, what's up? How's work? Cool. And it gets extremely boring, especially when you don't know the person and you can't feel their presence or their energy. It's literally like talking to a brick wall. It's talking to a screen.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta try a little bit. And I know that it's awkward for a lot of people, but you gotta push past it and ask like some of those questions you were talking about. What do you like to do for fun? Where's the last place you traveled? And then meet up. I mean, it's not a pen pal app. Trust me, you can't get to know somebody through texting alone. Even like FaceTiming and stuff, at some point, I recommend sooner rather than later, you have to meet the person and just see if the chemistry's there or not.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's incredibly true. The whole idea that obviously you were both intrigued and you both swiped. In my opinion, I don't think that it's necessarily the woman's responsibility. I think it's the man's responsibility to lead the interaction where he would like it to go, which again goes back to having an intention. Okay, are you here because you would like to meet up or because you would like to meet up? Well, if that is true and that's authentically true, then you're obviously going to take means or you're going to have a direction that aligns with that. And if you're not, if you're kicking tires, then that's where the conversation's probably going to fall flat.
Yeah. You know what? Bumble allows you the option to say what you're there for. There's like something casual, friends, relationship. I don't know. I think marriage is on there, which I don't get. You have to have a relationship before you get married, hopefully. But if you say that, like, say what you mean. If you don't want to have a relationship, fine. Again, like, I'm not here to judge. And I don't think the women are on there to judge either. It's just, okay, if they want a relationship and they see somebody else is looking for a friend or something casual, it's like, just save both of yourselves the time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a, at least in my experience, there's only like 4 or 5 different, what are you looking for? And I think that there could be about 7 or 8 that could potentially be added on there, because you don't want to seem like, oh, something casual. It makes you seem like you're just, you're out to take what you can get, or you're having a fun with a plethora of opportunity. But also if you're there for relationship or you're there for marriage specifically, that creates a little bit of like, okay, well, slow down. We're just kind of trying to meet people. So I don't think that's very balanced at all, but that's
right.
That's
there's a not sure option too.
There's not sure.
And there's a not sure option. I think that's fair.
Well,
just out there exploring, you're going to see where it goes.
Sure. I can't agree with that, but I think if you're there, at least in my view, if you're there as a guy and you're hoping to meet and date, especially on those two, on Tinder or whatever else, it's like, okay. But on those two specifically, it seems like if you have an intention to do it, then you should at least explain that, or you should list that. But teach their own.
I agree. I mean, if you're brand new, you've never done a dating app before, and you're not sure what it's like, go ahead and put that. But I think Hinge is marketed for people who are looking for relationships.
Yeah. So now I would be willing to bet that women are getting far more messages. I think for you guys, it's more that you have to filter through the barrage more than you have to filter through, right?
I don't know the statistics, but I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah. And I think that if you just have a balanced view of things, I actually, that would suck, because, you're just getting a barrage of stuff, so that you have to be really good. And to some degree, you've always had to be really good about filtering out, who to choose and who to spend your time with, and to filter for those things. There's something that's innate to you in that. But I think that would be really hard.
Yeah. There's a fine line between sticking to your standards and being too picky. I mean, you can say your height on these things, and again, your occupation. People can read between the lines when it comes to what kind of job you do and what your lifestyle, what your financial situation looks like.
Yep.
So it's different when you meet somebody in person, because again, you can feel their presence, you can feel their energy, you can feel the sound or hear the sound of their voice. On the apps, you have the possibility, I think it's heightened, to be very superficial. And a lot of people actually complain about that with the apps. They're like, this is all superficial. This is all about looks. So I encourage people to be a little bit flexible, right? Like, if the guy's 5'11" and not 6 foot, is it really a deal breaker? But at the same time, there are things that might be very important, like how they identify their faith or what they're looking for on the app. So yeah, it's like walking on a tightrope.
Yeah.
Like trying to just stay balanced and stay committed to your standards, but also not be shutting people out unnecessarily.
Yeah, I've just talked to some of the girls that I know, and we'll pull up our profiles, and we try to give each other tips and help each other out, because that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, I see their inbound messages, most of which are unread, and I'm like, Jesus, I mean, that could take a year to catch up on. So it's like, mine just doesn't look that vibrant, I guess, if you will. So now that's not a complaint. It's more just like, wow, there's a lot to filter through. And it's like, I'm here, especially if you have an intention to want to meet and get together. It's like, wow, this is a lot of work. So I can imagine that would be tough.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I recommend like meeting as soon as possible, because if you're talking to like 10 guys on there, and then 5 of them don't ever offer to take you on a date and then 5 do, it's like those are the ones who you're going to build the connection with faster, or at least figure out if the connection is there or not. And a lot of women, they report the chatting and just the constant texting feels like a huge waste of time.
Yeah, that's so setting the phone should just be used for setting dates and getting together, in my opinion.
I agree.
Of course, you got to have your initial. Okay, yes, I am the guy that's in the photo, and yes, I have a pet. But then beyond that, it's like the phone should just be used for setting appointments and getting together. I mean, I work in sales, and I don't care how you want to split it. The dating market is, you are selling yourself and you're being sold. So it's the same principle.
Maybe like one FaceTime before, just to make sure he is who he says he is.
Sure.
That's all you need.
So would you suggest then, if conversation seems to be going, it seems to be moving along, that would be something that maybe men should suggest or put out there?
A FaceTime?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Sure.
And it's not absolutely necessary, but it could be a safety measure.
Yeah.
And it could be, I've heard the argument too that it's a screening process, because you can tell a little bit more about a person through FaceTime. You see their facial expression, you hear the inflection of their voice, and that can actually help you decide, do I want to take an hour, 2 hours, whatever, out of my day to go get a coffee with this person?
Sure.
Or something like that.
Okay. So we've been talking about the online dating apps, which, I mean, we could probably have a whole other episode or 2 or 3 or 6 about that. But one of the things when we first had our initial conversation, I was really floored by a question that you had asked me, and because I had never heard it from somebody kind of our similar age, and you had asked me what it was like to be a man in the current dating world. And I wanted to find out where that came from, or why you asked me that.
So I can know which questions to answer.
Well, no, just it seemed like it was a little deeper than that, because it's just we have to watch our step a little bit more than we used to, and is that where that question came from? And is that kind of where the source of where that question came from?
Mm-hmm. When you say watch your step, you mean in terms of,
you just said, go ahead. Sorry.
Are you talking about the Me Too movement and things like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, okay, first of all, I'm with the Me Too movement in a lot of ways. I think that it's great. I think a lot of really, really bad people have finally had to take accountability and receive justice. However, I can empathize with men who feel almost scared to do something that is going to unintentionally cross a line, meaning like verbally speaking. I think physically it's pretty cut and dry. Now, when it comes to, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to circle back to that. Now, verbally, there are a lot of guys who I have talked to and who have worked with who have said, like, man, I'm really struggling with this whole idea of, like, respect a woman's boundaries when they don't want to go on a date with you, or when they want to break up or something like that, versus this very, like, romanticized idea that a lot of women talk about and want, which is fight for what you love, fight for what you want, fight for me. And these are well-meaning guys. The perpetrators, they're not asking these questions.
Right.
These are well-meaning guys who want to respect women and who don't want to cross boundaries. And I think sometimes they just don't exactly know where that line is. And the reason I said I wanted to circle back to the physical is because I think it can get a little gray when it comes to things like holding hands or kissing. I've met men who have said, like, these days I ask before I do anything. I ask, can I hold your hand? I ask, can I kiss you? And then I've met other guys who say that they've done that, and then they've gotten feedback from women that it kills the moment. So with that, I mean, I guess I say err on the side of caution, especially as a woman. I think I'll always default to that. But I also, a lot of it comes down to knowing the person who you're with, not trying to rush the process, and looking for those nonverbal cues of when is she sitting closer to you? When is like the skin on each of your arms brushing against? When is eye contact lingering a little bit longer? Like, when are you looking at each other's lips? Nonverbal communication is real, and it can be very accurate sometimes. But if you don't know, don't do it or ask.
It's, in my opinion, it's incumbent upon men to really get to know and to be able to really understand things like body language, subcommunication, what's being told that's not being spoken. We love a challenge. It's just how we're wired, and we're visually stimulated. So we will often overlook the women who have put themselves into our orbit and have made themselves available to us and are expecting us to do something about that, because we're overlooking at somebody, across the room or across the gym or across the bar, whatever it is, who we're visually stimulated by, who has not shown us interest, hoping that we're going to go over there and change that. And, it's just, it makes it easier for you, at least in my opinion, that if you focus on engaging the women who have made it known, by way of how they put themselves into your orbit, how their body language is facing you. Are they flipping their hair? Are they giving you eyes? Are they showing you their neck? Are their knees facing you? There's just a lot of things that are, you're the expert on this. Maybe I should turn it over to you. What should they be looking for other than those two things? Or two things?
Yeah, like women who are trying to talk to them a lot or making efforts to go around them. If you're in a crowd of people and maybe you're in a friend group, and every time the friend group is together, she gravitates to you. It's like, maybe she's interested. And again, if you're not sure, you can ask, do you want to go on a date with me? And if you're seeing those nonverbal cues that we just talked about, your chances are probably higher that she'll say yes. I wouldn't recommend just out of the blue going in and kissing somebody.
Right.
But it's okay to take risks, to take small risks that are not harmful in any way. Like asking somebody, do you want to go on a date with me? That's appropriate. That's necessary. And again, the well-meaning guys, I don't think that they're out there just crossing lines left and right. But at the same time, they do have to also take the nonverbal cues of when someone isn't interested too. Because it can go both ways. There can be women who are showing signs of interest and they miss it. And then there are guys who think that somebody is interested, and it's like, where are you getting that?
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. My stance is that when women have a high degree of interest in you, or if they have an interest in you, they'll help you. So they'll make it easy for you to either engage in conversation, or they put themselves into your orbit, which makes things really easy for you. And it's not about just taking shortcuts. It's like, dude, why would you waste your time going over there and trying to raise somebody's level of interest in you who hasn't shown it from the start? And
like, open your eyes to what's right in front of you,
right?
Type of thing.
Right. And it doesn't mean that the immediate people have to be your long-term significant other, or that you're going to marry them. Oftentimes, more often than not, it's not, but it's a really good way for you to, be more social, to maybe refine your skill set. It used to be called as game, but, to engage in conversation. So that way, when you actually do encounter a woman that you're interested in, that you're not so awkward, because it's just going to feel very normal. Right.
So you're talking about kind of like almost like practicing,
talking
to women,
and
flirting and Yeah, no, there's a huge element of practice when it comes to dating, in my opinion. I mean, sure, you might fall in love with the first person that you go out with. You might marry that person, but for a lot of people, it is kind of like, what do I like in a person? What do I not like in a person? And that's okay. If you're going into dating with the physical and emotional boundaries that you believe in, there's nothing wrong with going on a few dates with somebody, even if you're not completely sure that it's going to be your forever match.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it does. It's like a muscle. It's got to be worked. If you just show up and you've been talking to nothing but your neighbor and your guy friends, your flirtation game is going to be a little rusty. You gotta amplify a little bit of charm. You gotta have a little bit of humor. Not in a manipulative way, but and dish a little bit. You almost have to. This is going to sound really weird, but not really. So I've always thought that, like, if you find a way, you know how like an older brother will kind of jab, or not jab, but like kind of tease his little sister. I mean, he loves her, but it's like he kind of teases her. Yeah. You can't do it too much, but like, you kind of messing around. It should be playful and fun. It shouldn't be so serious and just so like stagnant. Yeah. Right?
Yes, playful is good.
Yeah.
Playful is good. Playful is flirty.
Yeah. Right. And that's the and that's the energy that you exude. If you're going in really serious and you have, you're in your head, which guys tend to be, and I have a proclivity towards that, you can feel that. You can sense that I'm not in the moment, and I got a direction I'm trying to go, and I'm in a rush.
And if you're being flirtatious and playful with somebody and they're reciprocating that, that's a good sign that person's probably interested in you.
Yeah, because if they're not,
you got to take a little bit of risks.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, exactly. They'll shut it down. They'll walk away.
Yeah,
they'll be really serious. So, yeah, you have to take a little bit of risks, healthy risks.
Right. Well, and you don't get anything. You can't steal second with your foot on first. I mean, you have to put yourself out there, and that comes with rejection. So,
no, that's exactly right.
Which that's part of it. That's part, whether you're doing it online, whether you're doing it offline, you're going to miss way more than you hit. That's maybe a bad way, euphemism, or bad way to say it, but you're going to strike out more times than you hit the ball, right? So
I could do a whole talk on dealing with rejection, because you're right. You have to be ready to take rejection if you want to put yourself out there. It's par for the course. I could talk about that all day.
Go ahead. I mean,
maybe next time.
I mean,
well, okay. The number one thing that I tell people is that rejection is not necessarily a reflection on you. Now, if you did something inappropriate or you were rude or something, it probably is a reflection on you. But 9 times out of 10, it's just a compatibility thing. Like the qualities that one person doesn't like about you, or that they don't find attractive, or they don't have chemistry with, someone else is going to absolutely love those things. So it's not about, how do I act a certain way? How do I pretend? How do I change myself into who somebody wants? Or, I got rejected, so I must be a loser. I must be ugly. No, like dating is like how many people are in the world? 7 billion piece puzzle or whatever. And it's just about who you fit with and who you don't.
Yeah. And it could be right person, wrong time.
Oh, that's so true as well. Yeah.
Context plays a huge role. You could be very interested, and so could she, and she's potentially just entered into, or her ex-boyfriend came back, or she's trying to figure out something. You don't know what's going on in the background.
Yeah, or there was a trauma in the family, or a work project that's taking up 24 hours a day, or like, they're studying for the medical school things. I don't know what that's called. One of my best friends just did that, and I know she was studying like literally 13 hours a day. So the point is, there's so many different things that could be going on, and if you get rejected, you don't need to beat yourself up and tell yourself that you're a terrible, horrible, unlovable person. That's not helpful, and it's not true.
No, it also communicates too that you invest and you care more of what other people think of you than you think of yourself, which I don't care if it's in the dating game, the business game, the social game, whatever game, that's a terrible business to get into. You have to value yourself absolutely first, so that if somebody else comes along and they don't like what you're offering, or they can't take you up on your offer for whatever reason, that you should still be intact and have all the things that you went into that with.
And that is exactly what I'm here to teach people.
How often?
That's what it's all about.
How often are women experiencing rejection? I mean, because
a lot.
Really?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, there are those guys at the bar who won't reject anyone as long as they have a pulse. But yeah, no, like women, extraordinary women, beautiful women, smart women, funny women, they also come across a lot of guys who are just, for whatever reason, they're not interested. You're not their type, or all the reasons you just named. They just got out of a relationship, or it happens.
Really? That's yeah. I think that's helpful for guys to know. We're prideful. We're visually stimulated, and when we you often hear it where it's like, you know, the guy's like, this is maybe a little extreme, but you do hear it where the guy's like, oh my God, I'm gonna marry that girl. I'm gonna be with that. It's like, dude, you don't even know anything about her. Nothing.
Right. Right.
Where with women, it takes, you guys fall in love slower. So it's about the whole experience, the courtship, and how you go about it, how you handle yourself, how you handle her, how you handle yourself when you're out, the whole process of how you ask her out. It's the whole process. Guys are just a little bit more simple, and we fall faster. Fair to say?
You know what's interesting is a lot of women, they actually end up getting rejected by guys who started out that way, super into them, pursuing them, and then several weeks later, they're not interested anymore. They find out that they're talking to somebody else, and these are not the kind of guys that they would want to be with anyways. But rejection doesn't necessarily just happen in the beginning when you shoot your shot at someone. Rejection happens if somebody betrays you, or you get cheated on, or they're interested in a casual relationship, but then they're not ready to take it to the next step. Maybe women experience more of that.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know the statistics, but that's very common as well.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think it's, you know, that's a great point that you make, because I think rejection is usually taken at the initial meeting, right? So it's like, if it didn't work out, it was automatically rejection, where it seems like with women, not in every scenario, but they're experiencing it maybe a little bit more on the, well, this is what she wants, but he's not really going to commit, or he ends up being cheating or stepping out. So it seems like it's maybe a little bit later in the courtship than it is in the very beginning. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And again, I am kind of biased in a way because I just work with larger numbers of women than I do men. So that's not to say that men don't experience the exact same thing. I'm just telling you what I see.
No, that's all good. My personal view, and this doesn't have to be everybody what they should do, but I go after what I want, and I have to be unattached to the outcome. It's extremely hard to do, but it does subcommunicate a level of strength and authenticity that the performance is far and superior towards, and is actually authentic to me and much longer lasting, because that's who I am. So the performances can only be held up for so long before you sold somebody a bill of goods, and that bill of goods is no good, and they're going to resent you for that, because that's not who you really are.
Right. Yeah. There's something to be said about not being so attached to everything that you go after, especially in the beginning. And like, dating apps are a perfect example. This may sound kind of counterintuitive, but I tell a lot of my clients, when you go on your first date with somebody who you met on an app, keep your hopes high and your expectations pretty low. because this person could be anybody. And if you have this idea of them all built up in your head and you've already planned out your whole relationship and what you're going to do on your anniversary and what your wedding dress is going to look like, and you've never met this person once, you could be setting yourself up for a huge disappointment when it really doesn't have to be that deep. It could, and it should just be, I met a new person. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, sure, I'd be sad. I mean, we're not like cold-hearted zombies. You want it to work out, of course, but it's a different kind of sadness than this huge disappointment of like, I've already attached myself to this thing that I don't even know anything about.
Yeah. And regardless if they're never going to meet that expectation that you have in your mind. That goes for both of us. I have an ideal. We have an ideal that you'll not meet up to. You have an ideal that I won't meet up to, or we won't meet up to or match up to. So it's in the acceptance of falling short of that, or in the acceptance of the flaws that make up the actual person. That's why you hear that statement, because that ideal is impossible to attain.
It is. Yeah. So don't attach yourself to an ideal either.
Yeah. It's extremely hard.
Because life is messy.
Yes,
life is messy. People are messy.
Yeah.
And that's not saying that you need to settle for somebody who has like all these really terrible flaws. You know, if they're abusive or they're like an alcoholic or something, that's one thing. But don't expect perfection either, because you'll be waiting your whole life.
Yep, exactly. Which is further more importance about why you got to get clear on what you want. Now, we talked a little bit in our first call about men who are too nice.
Yes, I love this topic.
You did, because you just lit up like a Christmas tree there.
Yeah.
What? Why do you love this topic so much? And
because it's such a misconception. Guys are always saying, "Oh, I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry." They're not always saying. A lot of guys, they think that when a woman says he's too nice, they go, "Oh, women like jerks." That's what it is. I'm nice, and women like jerks. That's why they don't like me. Let me tell you what too nice really means. There's a personality trait called agreeability, and it's on a spectrum. On one end, you have not agreeable. These are people who will argue with everything you say. These are the contrarians who have to play devil's advocate to like every opinion you have, and they can never just listen, and they can't go with the flow. It has to be their way or the highway. Okay, now on the other end of the spectrum, we have the people who are extremely agreeable. These are the people who always go with the flow. They don't assert themselves. They don't express their opinions. And that can appear apathetic. We talked earlier about how pretty much everybody likes a little bit of mystery. There's no mystery at all if you're just putting your whole self out on the table right there. You're not leaving anything to the imagination. It also can really demonstrate having no boundaries.
Yep.
Where if there is a guy who says to me, we just went on a date today. We were together for 4 hours. What are you doing tomorrow morning? What are you doing tomorrow night? Let's spend another whole day together. Oh, the day after that? Yeah, I'm free then too. It's like, wait a second. Do you work? Do you have friends? Like, do you have hobbies? Because that stuff is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. It's not about being nice. It's about being an individual, two individual people with their own opinions, with their own desires, in a relationship together, with their own personalities, where it's okay if one person says, I want to get tacos tonight, and the other person says, oh, I don't really like tacos. Do you think that we could get pizza instead? I would 100% prefer that than sitting across the table from someone who's forcing themselves to eat a food they don't even like because they are afraid to lose me or afraid to hurt my feelings. And again, it can appear apathetic. It's like, do you even care? Do you have passions? That's what it means when somebody's too nice. They're too agreeable.
Yep. That's part and parcel of all the things that men grew up watching on movies, TV, shows, all kinds of the same kind of thing. What we saw on TV, movies, and music videos and all that stuff is actually not how attraction works, because it's not even naturally us. What I mean by that is if you look at all the great, sitcoms or some of the music videos, they betray men as like this blubbering either idiot who the wife runs the household and he cracks jokes and he's the brunt of the jokes, or if you're like this uber Prince Charming romancing, it's like, okay, well, where's the challenge? And like we don't like things that are just dropped in our lap. We like things that we have to earn a little bit. So when you're too nice and you're copacetic, because you're avoiding the risk of either hurting somebody's feelings, or more importantly, at the depth of it, you're afraid that you're going to lose them. That is a really bad way to go, in my opinion, especially if you're a guy.
But, it can feel incredibly smothering.
As a woman.
I think for anybody, right? Guys too. If they're with a woman who has this expectation that they're going to take you and put you right at the center of their life right away, that's a huge, it's almost like I want to call it it's like a burden or something. It's almost like now suddenly I'm responsible for this person's happiness.
Right.
I don't even know this person hardly.
Right. I see a therapist, and he mentioned, and he's helped me with relationships, because it's of course a part of everybody's life, and it's something that
of course
should have a healthy mindset around. And I've had my challenges. I'll be frank. Who hasn't?
Everybody has.
Yeah, who hasn't?
Right.
One of the things that he pointed out to me, and it was really pivotal for me, was that he has worked with clients, and they have fought to develop the idea, or not really develop, or they've come to understand that their relationship was an accomplishment, right? So it was two people that came together and really wanted it, and they worked hard, and it's good, and it's because of their work on it that they feel that it's an accomplishment. But it wasn't at the center of their life before or after. Yes, it was a contributing thing. It added, what would you call? It added it added value to your life, and it contributed, and but it wasn't the actual centerpiece. In my opinion, I still think that a relationship should be at the center of a man's life. I'm coming from a man's perspective. I think it should be something that is a complement to your life, not the focus of it.
Yeah. Well, because another person they're imperfect. If you make somebody else the source of your happiness, you're inevitably going to be let down. Yeah. So of course they're a part of your life. They're probably a huge source of happiness for you, but they can't be the only thing. And you know what else? There was a sexologist, so somebody who studied sex and sexual attraction. He's passed away, but his name was Jack Morin. And he came up with something called the erotic equation. And the erotic equation goes attraction plus obstacles equals excitement. So if you're attracted to somebody, but there's some kind of obstacle, they have to go to work, or this is especially prevalent in like couples who may be long distance, or maybe there's some kind of social stigma around, like a Romeo and Juliet, you guys can't be together. When there's some kind of obstacle, and of course in a healthy relationship, these are healthy obstacles, like the other person, they have a job or they have commitments with their friends or whatever, that actually leads to more excitement in your relationship. And this is tried and true. So no, when a woman says that a man is too nice, it does not mean that she likes jerks. It probably either means that you have no boundaries, or that you're being too agreeable and you need to start being your own person.
Yeah, it's you gotta have a backbone, because also what that's saying to you is that, okay, if we're in any real danger, are you going to be able to help me out here? Are you going to are you just going to give me what I want because you don't have any boundaries. Like, are you going to have a spine? You're going to be up. It's a safety security thing, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. It is. It's biological. I think on both sides, we desire partners who are able to stand up for themselves, advocate for themselves, protect something. Because otherwise the other person just ends up carrying the whole load.
Yes. And it takes two to commiserate. It's reciprocal, right? So
it is.
One of the last things I want to talk to you about here is on patience. So we live in a instant gratification. Got to have it now. Don't want to do the work. If it's too hard, I'm on to the next one.
Yeah.
And women are probably experiencing a high degree of impatient men, both in person and in the dating apps. Is that a fair assessment?
Impatient in what way?
Well, either they're in a rush to get together, or they're in a rush to have the indoor Olympics, if you will. They're just moving things along a lot faster, and men should be going into it with the not in a skeptical way, but they should be going into interactions with women a little bit like, is she good for me? Rather than just being visually stimulated and just getting impatient and try to facilitate things. Again, missing signs. So I hear it from a lot of my girlfriends that are on dating apps, or that they're dating, that there's a lot of impatience out there.
Yeah. So there was a study published in 2019 that surveyed 68,000 women from 180 different countries on what qualities they look for in men. And there was this myth in the past that men look for attractiveness and women look for financial stability. However, this is what the study found. 90% of women rate kindness as the most important trait they look for in a partner. Patience is part of being kind. Supportiveness, intelligence, sharing similar values, confidence, trustworthiness, integrity, emotional availability, compassion and respect, sense of humor, and maturity. So if you think about some of those words like maturity, compassion, it's not very compassionate or mature at all to try to force a relationship along before it's time for that. What's compassionate is saying, okay, this is how I feel. How do you feel? And let's take this at a pace that we're both comfortable with. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that all goes back to knowing what you want, at least men trying to lead the interaction where he would like it to go, being unattached to the outcome. And again, I think that the bonding and the being together and I don't know, the moving in together, like the real bonding part, I think that you should let women kind of decide that. They should, in my opinion, they'll let you know when they're ready for that. And if you try to force or rush the situation, you're running you're going to run into trouble, in my opinion.
Yeah. It goes both ways, because as a woman, like, women get stereotyped a lot of the time as like the clingy, the needy, and that's kind of the same thing. It's like trying to force somebody to like you, or trying to force somebody to be around you, when maybe that relationship would be the one in due time. But when you're impatient and you do try to force those things, you just sabotage it.
Yeah. Now, one last thing. Would you when you're working with your clients, do you encourage them to kind of keep their options open, not in a non-committed way to where it's like futile for the people that are trying to set up dates with them, more so that you would that your focus just isn't on one particular person? Right? Because I think that that's the tendency for at least a lot of guys is to they get one-itis, and then they don't realize that that's coming through in their actions, and that's a bit smothering, and it's like, right.
I'm not against it.
Okay.
I'm not against it. I think it depends on the situation. Now, if you have interest in somebody and maybe you haven't gone on a date yet, or you've gone on one, or you're hanging out as friends and things are moving really, really slow, I would not encourage somebody to wait around for that person and turn down an opportunity from another nice, friendly, cool person who they like to go get dinner with them.
Right.
Because what I just described, the former, that is not a relationship. Okay, so that is not cheating. If you go to dinner with somebody else when you have barely gotten to know somebody else. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think that if a relationship is exclusive, that needs to be said. I think that needs to be said so both people know what the expectation is. Mm-hmm. I also think people are smart and they can infer, like, oh, this person's really into me. I can tell that they want this to be serious. And then it just kind of becomes about respect at that point. And what do you want out of the relationship? If you want a committed relationship with this person and you know that they do too, and things seem to be moving in that direction, then you might think long and hard about whether you want to go out with somebody else.
Right.
But if you barely know this person, you're interested, but it hasn't really developed into anything, I say go for it if you get asked out with somebody else.
Yeah, just an abundance is a good thing when you're looking.
And you're just getting to know people.
Right, exactly.
You're just getting to know people at the early stages. You could end up friends with one of them. You could end up dating the other one. There's nothing wrong with meeting new people and getting to know them. And then you'll see which relationships are moving ahead and which ones aren't.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I want to, first of all, I want to express the gratitude that I have for what you're doing in working with young women. I think it's really great, and what you're teaching them to not only become, but to what to really look for. So a huge debt of gratitude for what you're doing and taking a risk to do this as your line of work.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if our listeners were interested in finding out a little bit more about some of your content, some of the things that you do and work with your clients on, where can they go to do that?
I'm on Instagram at Tea with MC. That's TEA with WITH MC for Mary Claire. And I'm not going to lie, I've been on a little bit of a summer break. I've been traveling and like doing all these things. So in the fall, I'm going to be releasing brand new coaching programs that are tailored and designed for people's unique needs. So follow me on Instagram and stay tuned. Very
cool. Well, again, thank you for your time. I'm sure we'll have you back. Josh is probably gonna talk to you a little bit about the ongoing courtship after you're married, and that's just as important as the initial dating. But it is very grateful for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Thank you. No, I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much for the invitation. It has been fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, have fun at Lollapalooza, and
I will.
We'll see you on the next episode.
We'll see ya.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey guys, thanks again for joining us on another episode here at Men Explain Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also the bell icon as well, so you can be notified when we push out new videos. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and drop them at hosts, that's plural, HOSTS, at menexplainpodcast.com, or just visit our website, menexplainpodcast.com. Thanks again.